The Voices of the Sunbelt feature rolls on. We bring in the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs. He's Ted Alexander, and he's locked on Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, looking forward to our conversation with Ted Alexander, who actually predates ODU football with the Monarchs. We get into that a little bit. We talk about the roller coaster ride that was ODU football in 2023. Ricky Ronnie's offense really kind of a Hail Mary, and it's worked out so far, bringing in Kevin Decker and Grant Wilson. ODU was hit hard by the portal. I didn't realize how hard and how many new players they have. We talk a little bit about Jason Henderson and his legitimate tackle totals and the expectations here in 2024. It is an absolutely brutal schedule. 2 Power 4 squads, including opening up the season at South Carolina. They do get Virginia Tech at home, but it's an outstanding home schedule for Monarch fans. Let's bring him on. He is the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs. He is Ted Alexander on Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We are continuing our feature, Voices of the Sunbelt. Really thrilled to have Ted Alexander on, the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs. Ted, how many years have you been doing this now?
Too many to count, since 2007 or so. So still a young puppy, but looking forward to the season and looking forward to more adventures.
And how many years has ODU had football?
We started football in 2009, and so
Okay.
this is year 15. So every one of those years, it's been crazy. It's been a wild ride, but we have to remind ourselves, Dave, every now and then that we've only been doing this since 2009,
Right.
and some other teams have been doing it since 1909. And we need to remember that, because there are certain traditions and certain things that take time in the oven to cook. You can't
Sure.
always microwave everything.
No, it takes a generation. I don't know what your definition of, but my definition of a generation is 25 years.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
So we're still young pups.
Still very young pups. Well, you said it's been quite a ride, and I can't imagine any more of a roller coaster than 2023 was, beating the Raging Cajuns, not with the offense, but with basically a goal line stand. The Cajuns had first and goal inside the 10, and the defense held up. You should have beaten Wake Forest, probably had that game won and let it slip away. Couldn't get off the field against Marshall, beat App State, and then win on the final play of the regular season on a QB draw nonetheless. And you got Ricky Ronnie's wife, leaping in his arms, just complete adulation as they're going to a bowl game, and unfortunately let the bowl game slip away as well. So it was certainly not boring, and it was certainly a lot of fun, especially, what was it, coming off a 2-10 season? Maybe a little bit of a Hail Mary by Coach Ronnie to go get Kevin Decker from Fordham and Grant Wilson and insert him, but it was certainly a lot of fun.
Oh, no boring moments. Set a D1 record. 11 of the 13 games were decided by 1 score or less. 6 of those games, including the Raging Cajun game, down to the last play.
Right.
And so it's crazy stuff. You never know what's going to happen. That's one of the things that keeps you young about this business. You just don't know what the heck is going to happen. And so that's why you just have to watch it unfold and yap about it.
So what was it like? Because I actually did a preview with my brethren, Chris Marler, about, he hosts Locked On Gamecocks, and what's this going to be like? I was like, well, they're going to get a playoff within 20 to 25 seconds, right? Or that play clock, if that gets below 20, that's a long time. So they better be ready for that. What's that like for you as a broadcaster? Usually, you get the full 40 seconds. That wasn't the case last year.
No, and with this no huddle stuff, you never know when they're going to go fast. The thing that can drive you nuts, Dave, is the fact that when they get to the line of scrimmage, hustle up to the line of scrimmage, and then everybody stops and looks at the sideline for the play, and then you end up getting the play off, after the normal amount of time. But when they are playing well, they are playing fast, and they're being explosive, and they're protecting the quarterback. They gave up 62 sacks a year ago. That's too many. And there are a number of ingredients that go into any type of sack stat, but the Monarchs need to clean that up. They think they have, and we'll have to wait and see.
Do you know, and we're talking with Ted Alexander, voice of the ODU Monarchs, Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day. Were those sacks throughout the season, or did it get more as the season went on, was because teams had tried to figure out a little bit on how to play against that offense?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, I think you could point to some second half, perhaps lack of depth or fatigue. And when your offense is playing fast, that's a wonderful thing. Bing, bang, boom. But fast can also mean instant 3-and-outs, and your defense is going, hold it, I haven't gotten the water to my mouth yet. I got to go back in here. And so that was a bit of a problem. So they're hoping for, as head coach Ricky Ronnie says, you're never going to turn down a one-play touchdown drive. But if you could make it a 6-play drive and take off 3 times as much time, maybe that would be preferable if we have our wish list intact.
Yeah, at certain points that you mentioned, Tom Brady was one of those guys. They would hurry up to the line, but then he would snap it with like 1 or 2 seconds left to go in the play clock. So he was doing his own little game management style there. And that's, you can do that on the same drive if you're ODU, right? We're going to hurry up, and now we're going to settle down. Hurry up, and settle down. Keeps the defense on their toes.
Exactly. Keeps the defense guessing. And what you have to do, Dave, is make sure that you are zigging when the defense is zagging. You want to keep everybody off balance so you can take advantage of these things. And you don't know if that's going to be sending someone on the go pattern straight down the field and hopefully outrun everybody, or if it's a quick slant where you have to get the timing down and the move down and everybody on the same page. Monarchs are more of that type of offense. And if everybody isn't on the same page, sometimes the book doesn't read too well.
Talking to Ted Alexander, the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's talk about Coach Ricky Ronnie. I find him to be a very straight shooter, doesn't seem to take himself too seriously. There's a little Kurt Signetti in there, but also, a nice sense of humor as well. What's it been like watching him grow into the coach that he is, the former Cornell quarterback?
The thing you love about it is he is who he is, and he's a football coach. He's well-read, he's well-spoken, and doing a coach's show. We had our first one last night. It's a breeze because he can go anywhere and he can pick it up there, and he's a human being, and he's a dad, and he's a husband, and he's a football coach, all wrapped into one, and he'll touch on all of those aspects of his life during any various interview you do with him. And it's been nice to watch him. You root for him because all the guys are really nice guys. They're young guys, young in the business, and they have the energy, and you're just hoping that they can get over the hump and get themselves a roster that works against their toughest schedule ever.
Well, for those who may have missed our interview with him, he had a great line because we were talking about, it's 365. It's 24/7, 365 now, and a lot of guys are leaving college to go to pros. And he said that his wife actually induced one of their children on an off day during bowl prep when he was an assistant coach. He's like, I don't want to hear about these guys having kids and putting up with it during the season. My wife, we had a day, and she took it.
Yeah, Jen's a great woman as well, and just as a team, they represent their family and the university really well, and it's fun to see them back and forth and banter back and forth, and their dialogue with one another is a lot of fun.
Let's take a time out. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the ODU Monarchs voice, Ted Alexander. We talk about how many people are new to the program as ODU was hit hard by the portal. We'll do that right after I tell you about Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You get those great seat views. You can see where you're going to sit in that panoramic view from your seat before you buy. And that lowest price guarantee, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And with surprising my nephew, taking him to the NBA playoffs, Gametime, using Gametime was a breeze. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. And FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So far, 0-1. Took SMU. We'll see a little JMU action. Apparently, Charlotte is missing a bunch of their starters for this ball game. And so we will be all over the Dukes, which we may have been all over anyway. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's get back to our conversation with Ted Alexander. He tells us exactly how many new players ODU got through the transfer portal and incoming freshmen. Talking to Ted Alexander, the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, so one of the things that Coach Ronnie had mentioned is that this offense really takes off in year 2. Well, they have the same quarterback, which doesn't happen very often. I'm not sure we get to 2 hands with the same quarterback and the same head coach, depending on how you're counting Gio Lopez in South Alabama and Major Epplewhite. But there's very few of the same head coaches and same quarterbacks. And Grant Wilson and Ricky Ronnie are one of them. Problem is, a lot of the weapons that he had last year have moved on. ODU was hit hard by the portal. It's one thing when the team is 2-10. It's another thing if they're going to get some NIL money. How has ODU handled the portal situation? Because it had to hurt a little bit because these guys were going to put up great numbers in their second year in this offense.
You'd think so. And what you have to do is go back to the store, go shopping again. And you have to always be shopping. And you have to shop for guys that can fit your system, that have maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and maybe have some desire to get into a program like the Monarchs, where the thing is, if you're good, they're going to find you no matter what league you're playing in, especially if you're the top league in G5, like the Sun Belt is, they're going to find you. And they're going to see you, and they're going to see what you can do. So that should not be a deterrent. The dollars, sometimes you just can't compete with the dollars. But sometimes certain kids, they don't look at that as the top priority in terms of their decision-making process. And we'll see what these new guys can do. Now, sometimes when you're at the P4, you don't get any playing time, or you got injured, or it just didn't work out for one reason or another. And so that's a reason for you to be looking around. So sometimes you're getting a diamond in a rough. Sometimes you're getting a rough diamond in the rough. And it's up to the coaching staff to get better and better and better at microwaving chemistry and getting the right fits on the field that can stay on the field. Because a lot of the guys that come in, I think, from P4 to G5 schools, maybe are banged up injury-wise, and that's what cost them their time at the Power 4. And so when you get to your next location, you want to be able to play with good health.
Do you know what the total numbers were? I know, ULM has like 73 players coming in. Coastal Carolina, 66. The Cajuns were hit hard only a couple of key positions, including quarterback Zion Chris. But again, I think they lost like 7 guys and brought in like 5, including a punter. They were not hit hard at all. What the totals were approximately for, how many were incoming and how many were outgoing for ODU?
57.
New players.
57 coming in. I'm not sure about the numbers going out, but we lost some good players, some good people. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Sure.
And I'm an old guy. I have no problem with the new process. I've got more of a break in my heart for those that have graduated and want to go to their grad school year elsewhere. No problem with that at all. If you're an undergrad and you're playing and you're getting the time, what's the problem? I see so many, when you see a lot of these student athletes that have 3 or 4 schools, I just remember college was hard enough going to one place. But imagine if you're going to a number of different places in terms of your interpersonal relationships and how you're doing off the field of the court and how you're molding yourself for success after sport. I think that's something we'll have to keep an eye on down the road.
Yeah, I don't think we begrudge any of these kids getting what they're finally trying to get. But like you said, moving on, again, 53 was it 57?
57.
57. That is a ton. They actually had, and this was something I got from Dave Reigert from JMU, part of the Voices of the Sunbelt feature that we're doing here on Locked On Sunbelt. He said the backup quarterback for last year's backup quarterback could name all of the players, and they couldn't do that before. But so they're playing a name game. I'm like, do you think the coaches could do that? And so I mean, there's got to be a little bit of male bonding here, other than just playing paintball or going to a water slide. You got to be able to know who these players' names are. Has Ricky mentioned on how they're trying to get to know all the new players?
Well, I think instead of putting the name with the on the helmet with tape and a magic marker, I think they spent a lot of time together in January, in February, in August, in July, in June, those types of things. Now, the problems you have are the waves of players that come in after the first semester, after the season, then maybe after the regular school year, then during the summer. And then you've got the folks who get here just before camp. Those folks are at a disadvantage from a chemistry standpoint and from a knowing the system standpoint. I think what I think, Dave, also, and I've come to this conclusion the last couple of weeks, is these players are wired differently, perhaps, than we're thinking. They're used to just sort of skipping stones rather than desiring to have the roots down in terms of relationship or whatever. And they're football players, they're basketball players, whatever their sport may be. They're going to go in there and they're getting better and better. I don't think they are nearly, and I've heard some players on the Monarchs say this, it's not nearly as big a deal getting the chemistry as you might think, as I might think, because these guys are sort of wired a little differently now. They're playing, they're balling. And if they can figure out the system, ball in that system, the chemistry comes along with it.
I'm talking to Ted Alexander, voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Talking about chemistry, the one thing, and I guess there's something to be said for, if 10 guys are playing zone and one guy's playing man-to-man, there's a good chance that the band may be playing after that. That's what I hear from the coaches, but I'm not sure how often that happens. But the one group of guys, and you brought it up, they got to keep Grant Wilson upright a little bit more, is that offensive line. They have to have chemistry, or else the quarterback will be on his back. How does that look this year for ODU?
I think it's they've been doing a lot of mixing and matching here in fall camp and just trying to figure out the best combination. Got some guys come in from P4s. And the thing is, and I never really got Coach Ronnie to talk about this too specifically, because at this stage in the game, they aren't quite sure what they have. They know what they think they have. They know what they want to have, but they really don't know what they have, and they won't know that until you get a game or two under your belt. So which is the best combination right now in the offensive line? I don't know, but they think they're going to have more depth on that in that room and better players in that room, and therefore better result from that room. Interesting thing, little stat for you for the Monarchs and their quarterback. You touched on this earlier, Dave. The starting of Grant Wilson Saturday at South Carolina, he will mark the first time since 2014 the Monarchs have started the same guy at quarterback 2 years in a row. The guy in 2014 was a guy named Taylor Heineke. And since then, 1 year starting. Next year, new guy. Next year, new guy. Next year, new guy. Grant Wilson last year, and for the first time since 2014, Grant Wilson this year, 2 years in a row for the same QB.
That is amazing. So, again, big believer. Same coach, same quarterback, real success. So you go back to, the Raging Cajuns and Billy Napier, and the reason why he had so much success. Levi Lewis started every game for 3 years for Billy Napier. All right. Mike Desimo has had 3 quarterbacks in each of his last 3 seasons play. Last year, 3 different quarterbacks started. It is tough to get any sort of a semblance. Forget chemistry, just rhythm and calling the game and knowing how the player is going to react. That is an amazing stat. Even way before the portal and NIL, that this is the first time in a decade that ODU has the same quarterback starting in back-to-back seasons.
It's crazy, and obviously the incumbent in most cases has the advantage, and Grant's taken advantage of that and is stepped up. He's one of the captains this year, and he's stepped up both on and off the field, and you'd expect that from a guy who is a natural leader like many quarterbacks are in his second go round. He's not the new guy anymore.
Did he have any competition in camp?
It's Colton Joseph, Emmett Moorhead, the transfer, 6'5" transfer from Boston College, gave him the most. But the practices I saw, especially later in camp and Coach Ronnie will look at the last 2 weeks. Grant separated himself, and it wasn't Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Let's put it that way.
That's funny. Talking to Ted, are you a Steelers fan? Is that the problem? Is that the issue?
No, I'm a Ram fan from way back.
All right.
Roman Gabriel.
Wow. All right. I'm not sure if anybody's going to get that.
Story of my career.
I could go all Vince Ferragamo on you.
Dieter Brock. How about that?
How about that one? And I will. Let's take one more time out. We'll come back, wrap up our conversation with the Monarchs, Ted Alexander. We get a preview of a game. We're actually having games this weekend as ODU travels to Columbia to take on South Carolina, and then the overall expectations of this 2024 ODU squad. We'll do that right after I tell you about 5 Hour Energy. I'm a big fan of 5 Hour Energy. I've gone from sitting all day long to on my feet and walking around all day long. 5 Hour Energy gets me off to a great start and makes me make sure that I do finish strong as well. It's very important, and I'm a big fan of it. It has 0 sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you'll even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5energy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th and on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. I'm going to use that myself. That's going to help out because I'm on my feet all day long. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's wrap up the conversation with Ted Alexander, the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs. They have a heck of a home schedule. They got 2 Power 4 squads they're playing, including one at home, and they're opening up with South Carolina. It's a great opportunity for ODU, like the rest of the Sunbelt have. Can Old Dominion take it? He's Ted Alexander. He is the voice of the ODU Monarchs, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, so let's do a little preview, right? I haven't had many of these when we actually have a game coming up. And as mentioned, the theme, same coach, same quarterback. Well, South Carolina's breaking in a new quarterback this year. He's supposed to be pretty good, but from, again, Chris Marler from Locked On Gamecocks, the defense has been better than the offense. Usually I think that's the case because there's only so many plays they run and they know them all by the end of the first week, so they should be better. But we're wondering if that's the defense is really good or the offense is struggling. I wouldn't be surprised if ODU surprises them early before maybe South Carolina makes the adjustments. Obviously, it's a tall order going into Columbia to take on South Carolina on the opening day. What are your expectations? Why don't you preview this game before we get into the rest of the season? Because Ted, the big thing here for the Sun Belt is there is a huge opportunity across the board, right? Texas State has UTSA and Arizona State. App State has Clemson. The Cajuns have Wake Forest. There is opportunities across the board. Arkansas State, I'm not sure doing Michigan was a great idea, but then they got Iowa State. Opportunities are across the board for the Sun Belt to make a news like they did a couple of years ago when they knocked off 3 big boys on the same day.
Well, you bring up the word that Ricky Ronnie's been using, opportunity. It's, people say, oh, this is such a tough non-conference schedule. You add that to the Sun Belt schedule itself, and it's just murderer's row, and it's the toughest schedule ever. Yeah, well, it's also a hugely opportunity-filled schedule for the Monarchs. And I like the idea of trying to take on the big boys, even though you're going to be taking on big boy after big boy when you get into conference play. You've got to go out there because you've got to, first of all, if you're going to go play competitively in the Sun Belt, you got to play some good teams before then to figure out what you've got under duress. Cupcakes aren't going to do anybody any good at the end other than give them cavities and hay fever. So what you have to do is challenge yourself. And this year they certainly get an opportunity to do that. South Carolina, interesting thing, their place is going to be crazy. Williams-Brice Stadium, 77,000. I was there in 86, and I was there swaying back and forth as they hosted Nebraska. It was crazy. I'd never been in a stadium that swayed back and forth. I had 9-1 pressed on my cell phone that I didn't have at the time. And so we'll be going into the maelstrom there. And you've got to survive weather the storm initially. You've got to play fast. You've got to get the freak out nature out of your system. Realize you're playing football, still 100 yards and 53 yards, and you've got to hang around. And if you can do all of that, you'll have a South Carolina team that'll start getting a little nervous.
Right.
And you'll have a South Carolina team that perhaps will have to keep themselves from looking ahead 1 week to Kentucky when they play that SEC opener.
Right.
No one thinks the Monarchs have a chance, and maybe that's seeped into the Carolina way. Now, they had a rough go last year, so you'd think they'd keep their nose to the grindstone week 1, and that's what everybody expects. But you know what? If you go there and don't play scared and understand that there are going to be mistakes made, but you got to rally from them and just keep your composure, you got a shot.
Raising the level of discourse on Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Ted Alexander going all maelstrom on the podcast. We appreciate that. All right, before we get to the 2024 expectations, got to talk about a nothing. I'm not sure if a scandal is the right word, but something went viral last week. Linebacker Jason Henderson, probably going to be the all-time NCAA tackle leader following the season, taking over for fellow Sunbelter Carlton Marshall, who I love because he's from Mobile and he's really not 5'9", and I don't care how many years he played in college football. He had the most tackles in college football. People are saying he gets more. Jason gets more love at home than on the road, which I figure everybody does. Kind of like, official scores in minor league ball, Ted. Well, we got to take care of our own because we don't get it on the road. Yeah, but if you help out the shortstop, then you screw the pitcher. And if you help out the pitcher, you screw the shortstop, right? You can't win either way. What's your take on this? Because obviously Jason's a heck of a linebacker.
Not much. I think the definition of viral varies. If
right.
If one dude had an opinion and has facts to back that up, great. But they have to listen to the facts that go against that opinion as well, and take those to heart. The way I look at that, Dave, and you bring up the interesting analogy when it comes to baseball, and it seems in baseball you'll get a lot more. You're right. If you're going to help the hitter, you're going to screw the pitcher. If you're going to help that type of stuff, I get the impression, knowing and being in enough press boxes over the years, that those guys take pride in their work and they are serious about their work. And to have someone question their work, I think is something that is unfortunate. If that one person had ever been in a press box or ever done that job or ever seen teams that fly to the ball and where assisted tackles are through the roof, then maybe I'd listen a little bit more. But now it's just noise out there. If you've ever seen Henderson play, you understand what I'm talking about. He's all over the field. He's got a motor that's incredible. He's always part of where the ball is. And so for someone to come up and besmirch any of the records he's putting up, I try and take it with a grain of salt. What can you do? Everybody has a platform on social media and everybody's king of their own court. And if they make a lot of noise, other people sometimes just pick it up and mimic it or parrot it. But around here, we know it's legit because we know they look at every single play afterwards to make sure it's legit. And if you don't like the numbers and you haven't seen the player play, well, you're doing yourself a disservice.
There he goes again. More vocabulary on Locked On Sunbelt. We won't besmirch Ted Alexander ever on this podcast. All right, let's talk about the 2024 expectations. We are talking to Ted Alexander, voice of ODU Monarchs. It is an outstanding home schedule. East Carolina, Virginia Tech, Georgia Southern, JMU, and Marshall. That is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, the Vodtech game will hopefully be sold out, if not standing room only. And then South Carolina on that as well. Two Power 4 squads on the same schedule. What's the community thinking about this year? What are expectations? Like ODU could be better than they were last year, technically, and have a worse record because that's a really hard. But the way I would look at it, if I'm an ODU fan, we're going to see some good football.
Yeah, and there are just loads of opportunities along the way. We've never beaten East Carolina 0-3 against the Pirates. They come to our house. It's the closest FBS school to Old Dominion, so that's a rivalry we'd love to keep going. They're
Sure.
wonderful hosts when we go down there to Greenville, and we hope to be the same for the home opener. And then you got Virginia Tech coming in, and there are a lot of Hokie fans around the 757 that will climb into SB Ballard Stadium that day and root for their team. They've gone home losers the last 2 times that the
Crazy.
Hokies have come to Norfolk, which is
Wow.
incredible. But the Hokies are improved this year. Your other non-conference game, other than South Carolina, is at Bowling Green. It's never easy to go into a MAC school and play on the road, especially when you're still trying to figure it out after playing South Carolina and East Carolina and Virginia Tech. And so then you get the Sun Belt stuff, which is just brutal. It's just brutal. So you have to be playing well. You have to be healthy. You've got to be making your proper adjustments. 6-6 in the regular season last year, including a couple of barn-burning wins down the road to become bowl eligible. You lose the bowl game in overtime to Western Kentucky, and you went over it in your preview, Dave. Game by game, and where can you cobble your way to 6 wins, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but I wouldn't put anything past this team because you just never know. And without exhibitions and that type of stuff, and with 57 new players on the roster, you just don't know what you're going to get. And it might be something disappointing. It might be something crazy good.
Well, he's got plenty of examples. That's the best part about it. Ricky Rodden's got plenty of examples of them hanging in there, whether it was coming from behind, winning at the end, or the other way, having a big lead and letting it slip away. You got to fight every play. And I know it's cliche, but, don't give up and play hard all the time, because you see what happens. Like you mentioned, what'd you say? 6 games came down to the final play?
6 games down to the last play. No wonder I got white hair. Come
on. He's Ted Alexander, the voice of the Old Dominion Monarchs. Really appreciate your time, Ted. Thanks so much. Congratulations on a great career. Best of luck to ODU this year. And thanks for hopping on. Voices of the Sunbelt, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.
Dave, thanks for having me. You do great work. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep watching.